And we're live. Cool to be live here in the Mac Festival. Happy to see there's a lot of people still joining, so we take a few seconds here to just wait to see people joining. While we're waiting here, I can introduce myself as well. Jimmy Ekbeck, one of 3 co-founders of Octo. And today I will be sharing some knowledge about purpose-built experience APIs, trying to give you some insights around that. But also look around you, see where you have your bathroom, see where you have everything. It's going to be where you put them. So we know about that, exits and everything, to be clear on that. If you have any questions during this session, just post them in the chat. We have a couple of pre-posted questions that will be handled. So I will handle many of the questions as I can during this session. So just give people a couple of seconds. There are more people joining here. Yep, I think we can get going. So just to get to know each other, so I'll start here. Octo, purpose-built APIs, but also my name, Jimmy. I'm father of 3, husband, owner of a dog, a Rottweiler, 10 to 14 rabbits as well, but also a huge soccer fan. So it's great times now with the Euros and big night for Sweden tonight as well, playing the Ukraine. So it's going to be cool and interesting to see as well. So going forward here, we're going to have some short facts as well about Octo. So Octo was founded in 2019. We're an experience data platform unifying and sharing experience data to build relevant customer experiences wherever on any screen where you can imagine meeting a customer. It's a global team. We have people in a lot of different continents, and we have a remote first strategy so we can work with the best minds in the world and not kind of be restricted to geography. Also, we work with innovative and ambitious customer. On the contrary, we don't want to work with unambitious customers, but it's a great honor to have a lot of these really forward-thinking customers in our Octo family. So that's a great thing. Moving on here, I'm going to set the stage a little bit here, but as all of you know in this Mac arena here, that winning customers today and kind of working with customers is harder than ever. So the expectations from us as customers is kind of on the experience we want to see in kind of our journey is much bigger than before, kind of moving in between the physical and the digital world and expecting relevance in kind of whatever screen we meet, a brand or a retailer or a manufacturer or whatnot. So that's a big thing to kind of cater to, and also a big thing when we talk about a broader perspective of CX with loyalty and everything around that. And I saw a question here popping up as well that we get a lot from customers that I can kind of handle right away is, are you a CDP? And we're not a CDP and kind of focusing on the customer only. We focus on many different contexts of the data, but the customer being in the center of kind of who you want to communicate to. But we usually say that we have the customer, the product, and the context, and joining those 2 data sets together in order to kind of meet or create relevance in any front end where we can see this. So, but the customer expectations are super high, but the loyalty is all-time low. So it's kind of, there is a challenge there, and there is a discrepancy that people need to adhere to. But also looking from the front end point of the side here, there's a lot of new technologies that we can see here, and when working with this all around. So there's a lot of new possibilities, new technologies within this Mac space that we'll look at right now, but also around everything that we see here, where we have many different apps, both customer-facing, but also employee-facing apps that need to be developed. And there's like a big app explosion that we're looking straight ahead to. So there's something there that we need to look at, the way we build stuff, the way we reuse, the way we see data, the way we expect front ends to get data to create relevance and then kind of be efficient in the way that we do that. So that's something that people really need to look into. Sometimes we refer to that as the new state. There's a new way of doing things. We usually sometimes say, well, the impossible is now possible. You can do more kind of if you know how to do it and not kind of get stuck in the old way of doing all of these things. So that's something that we'll have looked into, the app explosion and the new state. And looking at all these different stages when you work with the kind of the context, the product, the customers, the screens. There are a lot of different phases where customers expect some type of relevant information. It can be within the store, it can be kind of in a smartwatch, it can be when they're looking on something online, it can be when they're in the store, it can be out of the store after purchase or whatnot. So there's a lot of different stages where you need or expect different types of information, and all these different micro moments need to have the right data into it. It can be the way the product is profiled, it can be what the customer expects as next steps, it can be all these different things that needs to be in that communication with the customer on these different screens. But it's many different places. It's not just like the one e-com, which you can have like a big e-com. There's all of these different types of purpose-built apps and built on these new technologies that are built to eat data through APIs. And if you can do purpose-built APIs that we're going to come to later on, you can kind of do this development much faster and easier in the way you want to do this. Get this question here as well, where is Octo, what's Octo built on? So I can take that right away. So Octo is built on we're Azure, so we're built on Microsoft technology in Azure. So it's a serverless setup where we can scale in many different ways, and we use document databases and graph databases all the time. So there's no SQL in the way we've set this up, and it's serverless in the way that we can scale geographically very easily. So the code is the infrastructure that we're building on. So that's kind of the foundation of what Octo is built on top of. But going back here to the story here, we looked at these different kind of data sets that we work with. We have the customer data, the transactional data, the PIM data, and the media or campaign data, if you can call it in a DAM or whatnot. But this is often what's met when you're trying to develop an experience, or you want to turn your enterprise data into experience data, that you're met by these silos, and they're often locked in, and there's not an easy way to unlock this data in order to create experiences. So this is something that needs to be solved in a more pragmatic or easier way, and that's where Octo is the Rosetta Stone, or a key component in a big Mac architecture, that we can make this data headless, we can unify it and expose it, and kind of work with product profilers and have all these other system of records maintaining data and creating fantastic data that then can be turned from enterprise data into experience data. So if you look at this from a different way, what Octo does is unifying all of these different sets here, and kind of geographically can scale an experience in real time. So it's going to be real-time APIs, and it's not like all these middle layers and kind of store data in different places and moving data between databases and integrating data models. It's more or less building front-end experience and innovate at scale, but also reusing and building purpose-built APIs for each of these different front-end experiences using these modern Jamstack technologies, or Vue, React, Angular, or whatever front-end technologies you want to build your experience on top of. But it's like market geography, different boutiques within the stores, retails and brands can build different things. So you can scale geographically, you can scale based on who you're meeting in these sessions as well. But what we do here is making data available for real-time experiences, and it's real-time access, and scale it geographically. So that's the key thing here. Like, you can do this in a high-performant geoscaled way, and you can do it over and over again. So it's not like moving data and then you kind of change the concept, but it's then you have another API that you push, and not the one version API, like many APIs. Sometimes we refer to it as Slack channel, set up a new channel that communicates that data set, which is required for this front-end experience. And you can do this over and over again. So that's a big thing in kind of rethinking this, how you innovate at scale, but also for apps and screens, how to be relevant for your customers. So that's a big thing in order to do this. So we got this another question popping in. There's lots of questions. I will try to answer all these questions as I can after this session as well. We got one here. Where do you fit in the Mac stack? And kind of, as I referred to before, we see ourselves as here as like unifying this enterprise data and turning it into experience data, kind of the data part of this, and moving it to the front end in order to create experiences within widgets on a bigger e-com set, or purpose-built apps in order to kind of more Yeah, it can be a running app. It can be, we have an example here, as you see with Cartier, which is the bridal app where you kind of buy wedding rings and the specific apps. It's a part of the assortment that is featured in a different way and kind of cater to a specific set of your, or a specific demographic of your customers. So that can be different things where we see Octo as part of the Mac stack, because all Mac entities, they have data and they expose data. But if you want to unify the data and have the same data set scaled in all these different places, Octo is the key component to kind of making this work and reuse it over and over again, turning the enterprise data into experience data. Looking at the even more kind of boxy classical way here, we can look at when you speak about APIs, there's a lot of different APIs, and APIs been around forever, so there's nothing new there. The new thing that we look at this is kind of the purpose-built experience API. What kind of API are we looking at? So you can categorize APIs in different ways, but you have like your classic system APIs that move data between more of in a horizontal way, making sure that data has certain states. There can be process APIs to kind of make sure that the process is working from A to B or from A to Z, making sure that a transaction is kind of catered in the right way. But what we look and what we mean with experience APIs are more the vertical way of integrating and making sure that you're exposing data in the right way, and that these are purpose-built for the front-end experience, and it's super easy to deploy a new one for each of the different front-end experience that you want to kind of use or that you want to deploy. So that's the difference in the way that you do this, and it's not kind of owned by developers or anything. So business users should be able to kind of set a segment of data, expose it in the right way for a front-end developer to build something or deploy it into another front-end system in order to kind of develop this front-end experience, but also the way where you can innovate at scale, doing this over and over again. That can't be a big chunk of the budget in order to kind of deploy a PWA or an iPhone app in order to do something. So that's a big change in this. Also, if you have real-time APIs, you can kind of get data back from the sessions and build insight based on the behavioral within these sessions and how the APIs are called at different times and different timestamps. So that's also great information that we want to do here. So this is a way to kind of say what kind of APIs, but it's the purpose-built experience APIs for the front-end experience in order to do that richer and much better, in order to unify the data from these different back-end systems, transactions, PIM, product data, customer data from the loyalty system or the CRMs, great data that's been built there, but use those to cater to the different micro moments that are like each and every one of us are experiences. And when we need something, if you have a great app, there's an app for everything. So we know that, and that there's not going to be less of those screen experiences. I think we can all agree on that. Moving into the next here, we can look a little bit about how we kind of structure the data when we turn the enterprise data into experience data within Octo. So we usually like slice it in these sections here, that we have sources, as we discussed before in the previous picture. We have all these different data sets, and they look the way they do because they handle a lot of data. They have processes to secure data, the PIM system, the CRM system, and ERP looks the way it does. It can be an OMS that has purposes for the way the data is structured and the way they operate within an ecosystem. But a source for us is where we can get the data in, and Octo has no model or anything. So it's more of a key value structure. So very easy to onboard data into Octo, which is a huge thing when you kind of want to use this data that we don't have, like send it to us in this way, we can consume it. Send it whatever way it is you have it, we can kind of onboard it and then structure it in a way we can expose it to others to consume. So what we have that later on is what we call the cards, where you define the different attributes from the different sources that you want to use for what we call the front end or destination. So you can kind of pick and choose what kind of attributes from the different sources you want to feature or show in the way that you set this up. And segments is a way where we define the assortment or the data set that you want to expose to a destination, where you have the APIs and the UIs and the pre-built things that we have there. It can be static feeds as well to another system, but most of the time it's real-time APIs based on the card definition and the segments, the assortment and the array of data that you want to expose through what we call the destinations. where the data is structured and scaled to be able to perform the way you need in a front-end experience. So source, card, segment, and destinations are the sets of data that Octo uses to turn enterprise data into experience data. So the best way to kind of show or to understand is by example. So I've some of the things that's been built on top of Octo, so we call this built with Octo, are things that I want to kind of show you here so you get a feel for what it is. But it's a couple of e-com sites insights, a couple of PWAs that you can get a feel for how it's used. But in this case, it's Cartier, that's the customer example here. And what we see when Octo is on place there, innovation starts happening and they build a lot more of these front-end apps, and people that before were like put in line and wait for your turn because the roadmap for the tech team is this big and you can't kind of, your idea is good, but not now. But we see that a lot of these innovation and the ideas, they get air and they start flying. But in the case here, we have what we call an in-store mobile app, My Catalog it's called, but it's for the boutiques within the Cartier network, both internal and external, for having my boutique, what do I have in stock, which assortment do I have here, is there something that I need to know? I can look at different stages for prices in different geographies. I can also see if there are customer requests or inquiries based on my boutique. If a customer comes and asks, there's a photo or an image recognition built into it for like watches, so I can kind of take a photo of a watch and see what is this watch, how is it used, and kind of see directly if I'm new at work. I can get a lot of like help from this app, and it's in my iPhone, so I can use it all the time, and it doesn't disturb my relationship with the customer in the physical store, and I don't have to run back and see what we have in stock. I can see it right away together with the customer, and that creates a lot of more quality in the way we can meet the customers. That's one example of a very kind of quick POC'd way that we can work with. Also, we have a mini site, which is a way for watch industry to kind of display things for retailers from a brand to display their own assortment within the site inside concept, where it's a mini site developed based on the Octo APIs, and it's just a view front end that's built on top of these APIs. Very straightforward, easy way of kind of migrating experiences between different places. The other one is the one that I mentioned before here, the one to the right-hand side here, which is the bridal app, or where you kind of, and it was an initiative from the Japanese market where they kind of felt that they can sell wedding rings online, and people were kind of hesitant. Can we do it? It's a lot of expense. You want to kind of look and feel. But they felt that they could do it. So it was a Japanese initiative from the beginning, and a Japanese firm built the front-end experience based on the Octo APIs that would just scale out from HQ of Cartier and kind of built this experience where you can pick based on the material, the size and the quality of the diamond, and kind of mount and look at this. And from this case, it was very important to see the stock levels and making sure that everything is on place, because when you buy these expensive things, you want to know that it's really there and that you don't sell anything that you can't deliver within the time frames expected. So it was a big thing of kind of checking in real time, knowing what we're kind of exposing to the customer. But that was shown on the Japanese market, that you can actually sell wedding rings online in this bridal app, that they can do things and buy things. So that's a pretty cool initiative and innovation based on a very good idea from one market that is now going to be rolled out into more markets. It's a pretty cool thing. Another thing that we didn't speak much about here when you look at experiences is it's an important thing is employee experiences as well. So in this case, it's Nordic Nest, a retailer within it's based in Sweden, but they sell across Asia, Europe, and they have a huge growth. And what they see, their customer service team is kind of growing in the same way that they're growing their revenue. And what they want to do is be more efficient for their team in order to handle more customers when they call in. So what we did here with Octo is unifying 3 different data sources, unifying one view of a customer in real time when they call in, so you can kind of have a better conversation with the customer. You can turn perhaps an angry customer into a happy customer, giving them the right thing and looking at it from the right perspective. But that's also an internal app that helps organizations be more efficient, but also unifying 3 different sources with the VMS, the PIM, the loyalty system, and the and the transactional ERP system with the different orders and the different stages of the order, knowing what stage something is, because most of the times they're asking, when do I get my product? And if you can answer that in the right way, or why is my delivery late? So that's usually the way. But that's a great thing for helping them empower the staff there, the employees within Nordic Nest. So it's not only customer facing in real time, but it's also employee facing internal labs. That's also huge growth that we're going to see, because they're a new generation being hired now as well, and they're not gonna they have different expectations on the systems they're going to work with. So that's a big thing to look at as well. So going forward with this here, so don't let every experience innovation become an IT project. So move away from the way moving data, integrating data points, building all these different middle layers here, and then kind of doing everything. And don't let everything be eaten up by moving data, and no focus on the customer front-end experience. So that's something that we have to look at and be aware of, so not everything becomes integrating data models and moving data between databases. So look at it from these perspectives instead, like matching, exposing, infusing real-time intelligence and real-time data. If you can harmonize the data in here, joining all these different data models, having one way of looking at it, exposing these in real time, and based on the context somebody's viewing your products, whatever, if you're out on the field requiring help in order to fix something, it could be that context that you need to cater to. So if you have that possibility and the new way of doing it, and not building all these different data layers, that every front end needs its own database and kind of storing the data to its need and then expose it, that is something that I think everybody needs to look at and kind of be clear on. And we have one more question here that I think I can tie into this. What's the difference between an API and a purpose-built API? Kind of what we're looking here as well. So as we said before, there are many different APIs, but for us, the purpose-built experience API is for this front-end experience here, to kind of, you have one API built for that with a set of data required for this front-end. So it doesn't become that you have this huge, fantastic idea or vision for a front-end, and you kind of draw all these visuals and drawings, and you build these clickable demos that you can do. But when you start looking at, when you trace back and see where do we find the data in order to realize this great innovation or this great idea, everything becomes integration looking, and you have to like peel off of the great first idea, and you end up with like a small portion of what was the original idea. So that's kind of what we look at the purpose build. Look at the data, make sure that a front end can have the right set of data in the right way, easy to consume, and in order to build that front end. So that for us is the purpose built experience API. So the vertical way, the fast way of exposing that data in real time as well, but also do it at scale over and over again. So when you harmonize the data and unify the data within Octo, it's very easy to kind of slice and dice the data, expose it in many different ways, and kind of put it wherever. I think also, before we kind of move further on here, I would like to kind of leave something with you, a customer case that we have as well, so I can share this here with you guys. It's a blog post here with one of our customers that I touched based on here, Cartier, so you can kind of read that as well, so you can see a little bit how they're using it, in what context they have kind of benefited from working with Octo and unifying the data, and have that being able to be exposed in purpose-built real-time APIs. So that's also a good read, I think, for everybody in this session. There are a lot of other questions here, but I think we're more or less coming to the end here as well. So the idea here for you guys is to understand the way of kind of move away from the old way of kind of building all these different data layers, all these different data sets, but also kind of unifying the data into one experience platform, and from that expose the real-time data in whatever. It can be any front end, doesn't have to be screens, but there are a lot of screens now meeting the customers, all these different stages within the boutique, within the e-com, within these purpose-built front ends, the different guided selling apps that are out there, the PWAs, and all the different things that you want to do here. So this is kind of the things that I wanted to leave all of you with. So with that, I think I want to thank everybody for turning out here and kind of moving into this. So thank you, everybody. And now we're going to focus on Sweden, Ukraine, and hope for the best for Sweden. So have a nice day and a great evening.